The first explosion came not with fire, but with a sulking whine that spiraled downward like a tantrum in audio form. It ended with a crash somewhere past the marsh line. Ilara looked up from the half-dissected drone core on her lap and blinked, long ears twitching in reaction to the sudden sonic disturbance. A burnt trail split the afternoon sky like a finger smeared across a digital canvas, curling into smoke. She squinted, set down her tools, and muttered to no one, "That's either a cargo pod or someone flying with a death wish and an expired navigation system." She scanned the treetops, jagged silhouettes of thornbark and silvervine, and tried to guess the impact point. Judging by the echo, it had landed past the fourth ridge, in the Swallow Marsh. Not ideal. The last scavenger who went there had come back covered in leeches and muttering about singing mud. But curiosity, that old dangerous friend, nudged her forward. Ilara stood, brushed a few wires off her jumpsuit, adjusted her tool belt, and started the trek through the green-lit canopy of her home planet, Velarith. Around her the jungle buzzed with soft harmonics. This world always hummed, always alive, as if the entire ecosystem was tuning itself like a great machine. She liked that about it. She didn't like its people quite as much. Halfway through the marsh, she nearly stepped on a camouflage burrow beetle, which clicked at her irritably. "You're not on the road registry," she told it, stepping over, "but I'll overlook it this once." The wreckage came into view a few minutes later, nestled between two roots the size of small ships. The impact crater steamed gently. A ship, small, sleek by human standards but dented all over, sat drunkenly tilted, one of its thruster cones buried in the mud. Panels hung loose like tired eyelids. The hull bore the insignia of the Terran Defense Fleet, or what was left of it. A groan emerged from behind the twisted landing ramp. Ilara froze. Another groan followed, louder, like someone who had stood up too fast and remembered gravity existed. Then he appeared. Human. Tall, definitely taller than her, by at least 2 heads, with a scruffy beard that looked like it had lost a fight with a hedge trimmer. His uniform was scorched and partially unzipped, revealing a tank top with the words "I void warranties" printed in faded letters. He squinted at her like she was a particularly confusing menu item. "Am I hallucinating?" he asked, rubbing his eyes. "You got long ears, like really long." She tilted her head. "You're leaking hydraulic fluid from your right leg. That's not standard human physiology, is it?" He looked down at his bleeding shin and nodded. "Nope, that's just blood." "Good catch, though. Nice to meet you. I'm Dax Marrow. Crash enthusiast, part-time soldier, full-time bad decision maker." Ilara hesitated, then stepped closer. "Ilara, full-time scavenger. Occasional mistake." They regarded each other for a moment, two incompatible data streams blinking into sync. "Listen," he said, wincing as he sat on a chunk of hull. "I need to contact my crew or command or, well, anyone who isn't currently trying to digest me. You wouldn't happen to have a long-range communicator, would you?" "Not unless you want to talk to birds. They're very chatty," he grunted. "Figures. Any chance you could help me patch up this heap enough to send a signal? Any chance you won't collapse again if I say yes?" He grinned, teeth white against the grime. "Low, but worth a shot." For the next hour, Ilara worked. Dax mostly commented. She extracted a half-melted transceiver from the hull and set about wiring it to one of her salvaged battery units. He tried to help once and got shocked so hard he forgot his own name for 12 seconds. She didn't laugh. Much. "So," he said finally, watching her solder with near-religious reverence, "you're not exactly what I expected out here. What did you expect? Something taller? Something with more hostility and fewer puns?" She handed him a tool. "Careful, that one's calibrated for sarcasm." By the time the makeshift transmitter began chirping weak but promising signals into the upper atmosphere, the sun had begun to dip behind the fog line. Dax reclined against a rock, now bandaged and slightly less likely to die. "So what's your deal, Ilara? You live out here scavenging solo?" "More or less." "No family?" "They prefer not to mention me unless tax season is involved." He winced, then nodded. "Oof, that's relatable." She looked at him. Really looked. The way he sat, tired but alert, the way he masked pain with jokes, the way he saw her without flinching. No one ever did that. Most Lasari barely looked at her. Too thin, too pale, too not enough. Why are you still smiling? She asked quietly. Because I'm not dead, he replied. Because someone helped me when they didn't have to. And because I have a feeling you're going to end up way more interesting than I am. She snorted. The bar's low. And you just pole vaulted it. A silence settled between them, comfortable for once. The jungle hummed. The ship steamed. Somewhere distant, a beetle started singing out of tune. You're going to stay a while? She asked, not meeting his eyes. Dax adjusted the makeshift splint on his leg. Well, unless I want to become spider lunch tonight, I probably should. You got room in that scrapyard empire of yours? She hesitated, then nodded. One condition, she said. Lay it on me. You stop referring to everything as probably fixable. I need better odds. He saluted weakly. Understood. From now on, everything is technically fixable. Much more optimistic. Ilara allowed herself a small smile. This crash, as ridiculous as it was, might have just dropped something valuable into her world. Not spare parts, a beginning. Dax was not graceful. That became clear on the third morning, when he tried to stand on his bandaged leg, declared it probably healed enough, and promptly fell face first into a pile of moss that smelled strongly of fermenting algae and broken promises. Ilara, sitting nearby while modifying a set of optic goggles, did not look up. Would you like help getting up, she asked, or would you prefer to bond with the local flora a little longer? Moss has a very misunderstood texture, he replied, voice muffled. It's like hugging a wet sock, comforting and gross. She reached out a hand anyway. He took it, grunting as she helped haul him upright with more strength than he expected. For someone her size, Ilara had wiry resilience buried beneath all that quiet and skepticism. He noticed again how her long ears twitched slightly whenever she focused on something. They reminded him of tuning antennae, like she was always catching a signal just outside normal range. Okay, Dax said, brushing green fuzz off his shirt. Status update. Walking is at 70%. Dignity at a solid 30. Weaponry, 0. Snacks, tragically missing. You don't have any rations? I had rations. Then your marsh tried to eat my crash site. I think one of the ration bars developed sentience and ran off. Ilara passed him a small container. Dried berry skins and protein roots. Local, slightly tangy, may cause dreams of floating sheep. Better than ration bar, he said, chewing with wary approval. I once bit into one that tasted like defeat in tax audits. They'd set up camp in a hollow carved into a massive tree trunk, reinforced with scavenged plating and natural stone. It wasn't large, but it was hidden, insulated, and came with the added benefit of only occasionally dripping sap onto your forehead while you slept. Dax dubbed it the Tree Fort of Mild Regret. Ilara did not officially approve the name. So what's the plan today, fearless scavenger? He asked after breakfast. Ilara tapped the side of her datapad. Your ship is stable but non-functional. I want to salvage the translite relay core. With some of my old comm parts, I might be able to boost a distress ping. And in the meantime, we pray someone out there is listening? Number in the meantime, we keep me from being exiled for harboring an off-worlder. Ah, the warm hospitality of xenophobic neighbors. Ilara stood and slung her modified toolkit onto her back. You're a human with military patches. My people think you're either here to spy, start a war, or propose marriage to our high priestess. Dax blinked. Wait, there's a high priestess? She's a fossilized mushroom. It's symbolic. They spent the next several hours trekking through the jungle, Ilara leading the way with practiced steps, while Dax hobbled behind like a sarcastic scarecrow. He tried to keep the mood light with commentary, although most of it was either complaints about humidity or strange facts about the human digestive system. Ilara mostly ignored him, except when she didn't. At one point he tripped over a root, cursed in 3 languages and muttered, I miss concrete. Concrete doesn't try to kill you. Depends where you land, Ilara replied dryly. By mid-afternoon they reached the crash site. The ship was more sunken now, like it had decided to give up entirely and embrace its fate as a permanent landmark. Ilara climbed inside first, disappearing into the charred cockpit while Dax kept watch, occasionally poking curious insects with a stick. Anything alive in there? He called. If it is, It's very quiet and smells like burnt coolant. A few minutes later, she emerged, arms full of components and streaked with soot. She set them down and began connecting wires between a cracked signal amplifier and one of her own custom signal boards, which glowed faint blue when activated. Dax leaned over her shoulder. You know, for someone who supposedly isn't a warrior, you're terrifyingly efficient. I don't need to lift heavy things when I can rewire your ship to explode from 30 meters. Noted. Never make you angry near electronics. The makeshift array sparked once, hissed, and then began to hum, a low rhythmic pulse that synced faintly with the ambient vibration of the jungle around them. Dax raised his eyebrows. Is that working? It's sending, she said. No idea if anyone's listening. He nodded, exhaled, and sat back against a stump. You're good at this. I know. Confident, too. She gave him a sidelong look. You have to be when everyone else assumes you're useless. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he watched her adjust the antenna alignment, noting the speed of her hands, the calm in her expression. Then after a pause, he said, You know, in some places, someone like you would be considered a tactical genius. The ears might even be fashionable. She chuckled. I was once told my ears made me look like a faulty satellite. Well, they're better than mine. Mine just turn red when I'm embarrassed. Really? She leaned closer, mock squinting. Let's test that theory. Dax held up both hands. Truce. You win. I concede all ear-related superiority. They packed up the gear, the signal array now transmitting in intervals. As they walked back toward the tree fort, Alara slowed. There's something coming, she said, ears flicking forward. Dax immediately reached for the sidearm he didn't have and grimaced. Define something. She crouched, hand on the mossy ground. Footsteps, metal. 4 legs. Fast. Okay, that's not something. That's some things. A moment later, the underbrush split, and a Lycery patrol droid leapt through, sleek, insectile, with blades folded tight against its body. It skidded to a stop, eyes flashing. Ilara didn't move. It's an old border unit. Recon class, not designed to kill. Famous last word, Dax muttered. The droid scanned them. Ilara stepped forward and held up her comm badge. It blinked red once, then turned green. Authorization accepted, it said in a filtered voice. Scavenger Ilara, you are required to submit a full report on unauthorized contact with foreign entity. I'll send it in next quarter. The droid buzzed, possibly in disapproval, then turned and bounded off. Dax let out a long breath. You ever consider putting up a sign that says, Beware of bureaucratic robots? Wouldn't help. They don't read. They audit. When they finally returned to the camp, the stars were already blinking on above the canopy. Ilara sat cross-legged on the floor, adjusting a sensor embedded into the camp's ceiling. Dax watched her, thoughtful. You really don't realize it, do you? She glanced at him. Realize what? You're the most dangerous thing in this jungle. She raised an eyebrow. That sounds like flattery. It's not, he said, lying back. It's an observation. But for what it's worth, it's kind of awesome. Ilara didn't reply right away, but she smiled as she tightened the last bolt and flicked the sensor on. Outside, something howled. Inside, something built, and neither of them were running anymore. You're holding it backwards, Ilara said without looking up. Dax blinked at the plasma spanner in his hand. Am not. You are, unless your plan is to weld your own thumb to the coolant valve. He rotated the tool sheepishly. Okay, now it makes a lot more sense. Who puts the power trigger on the side, though? That's just asking for accidents. It's not a gun, Dax. You don't need to point it like one. Old habits. I've accidentally fixed 3 chairs and a coffee machine doing that. They were crouched inside the remains of an old Lasari transport craft Ilara had discovered a week prior and mostly stripped for parts. Now it served as her workshop annex, part lab, part garage, part evidence that gravity hated vertical shelving. Dax was attempting to help her install a new stabilizer mount on a hover sled, which so far had only resulted in minor burns, a few loud clangs, and one minor philosophical debate about the nature of intended design. Ilara tightened the last bolt and stood. Okay, try turning it on. Dax pressed the ignition. The sled vibrated violently, lifted 2 feet in the air, and then immediately slammed sideways into a wall with the grace of a startled goat. A panel fell off. He blinked. Well, we achieved flight. Sort of. Congratulations. You built a screaming paperweight. I think it has character. It has a concussion. While Dax retrieved the sled from its crash site, Ilara walked over to her comm board. The boosted signal relay they'd activated days earlier was still pulsing, sending out a carefully encrypted request beacon on several old Terran military bands. So far, nothing. Either the message hadn't reached anyone, or no one wanted to answer. She wasn't sure which was worse. Dax limped back, brushing dust from his sleeves. I think we should install seatbelts, or ejector seats. Definitely ejector seats. You don't get to install anything until you can tell which end of a tool is the not danger end. Harsh. Accurate, but harsh. They took a break, sitting on a pair of old cargo crates outside the wreck. The jungle stretched out in fractal green and flickering blues. A few flying creatures drifted past, one of them singing a tune that sounded suspiciously like the melody to an ancient Terran pop song. Dax squinted at it. Did that bird just hum Rocket Man? They pick up transmission fragments sometimes. I once heard one quoting courtroom transcripts. Tell me it was doing both sides of the argument. With feeling. They sat in silence for a moment, the air heavy with heat and the faint electric buzz of life all around them. Then Dax said, So what's the story, really? Why aren't you with your people? Ilara didn't answer immediately. She reached down and adjusted the strap on her boots, then said, I was born small, weak, sick even. On Lasari, that's not acceptable. We're engineered for strength, speed, precision. I was an error in the code. Dax nodded slowly. And people don't like broken things. They tried to fix me, not with medicine, training, indoctrination, recalibration. When that didn't work, they suggested I dedicate myself to low-grade maintenance, or maybe go join the Data Quiet in the north. What's the Data Quiet? A monastery full of people who've given up on conversation. Sounds peaceful, and also like the worst family reunion ever. Ilara almost smiled. I chose exile instead. Figured if I couldn't be what they wanted, I'd at least be something else. Dax leaned back, arms folded behind his head. And what do you want to be? I haven't decided, but I know it's not silent. That evening, they began working on a training simulator. The idea had come from Dax, half serious and half bored. If Ilara was stuck here, she might as well learn a few things from him. Not just engineering, but tactics, agility drills, reflex work. She'd laughed at first. You want to train me like a soldier? Not like a soldier, like someone who could punch a robot and not get arrested for it. Tempting. He rigged the simulator from a broken hollow array, an old targeting drone, and a personality chip that had once belonged to a Lasari poetry bot, which now occasionally interrupted with unsolicited stanzas about the nature of time. Please ignore it, Dax said as Ilara ducked under a spinning arm. I tried deleting the poetry subroutine, but it fought back. The arm swooped again. Ilara rolled under it, came up on her feet, and immediately got smacked by a foam projectile. Ow! Less dodging, more anticipation. Pretend the machine is your cousin at a family dinner. Is it trying to discredit my life choices? Yes, and it brought pie. Now hit it. She lunged, hit a sensor node, and was rewarded with a shrill buzz and a line from the poetry bot. Your impact rings, like bells in the void. Ilara blinked. That's, not terrible. I know. That's what scares me. The training continued every evening, and slowly patterns emerged. Ilara adapted quickly. Her movements became tighter, more efficient. Her reflexes, already sharp from scavenger life, grew sharper still. She didn't move like a warrior, not yet. But she moved like someone who could become one. And all the while, the signal kept pulsing. On the 7th night, while Ilara practiced a disarm move against the poetry-spouting drone, Dax sat at the comm console, fidgeting. A new indicator was flashing. He tapped the controls. A voice crackled through, static-laced and distant, but unmistakably human. This is Captain Reese of the UTS Galvin. Repeat, we received your beacon. Identify yourself, Dax shouted. Ilara! She froze mid-dodge. The drone clipped her shoulder, spinning in a confused pirouette while shouting, Glory to bruises and blooming pains. She rushed over, breathless. Someone answered? He nodded, grinning. They're human. Real military. Real ship. They're 2 systems away and they're coming. Ilara stared at the screen. That's good, right? Maybe. Depends on what else they pick up. She exhaled, slow and measured. Then we prepare. For what? For whatever comes next. Behind them, the training drone hummed ominously. And somewhere in its data banks, the poetry chip whispered, the stars are watching now. Do you always pace like that when you're nervous? Dax asked, lying upside down on a cargo crate, legs hanging over the edge and a half-repaired sensor array in his lap. Ilara didn't answer. She just kept walking from one end of the camp to the other, pausing every few steps to tap her communicator or adjust a diagnostic panel. Her ears twitched in rapid intervals. If she had been a Terran animal, Dax thought, she would have been a caffeinated squirrel on a panic loop. Because if you do, I might need to reinforce the floor. You're wearing a trench coat. I'm calculating landing vectors and signal triangulation, she muttered, and trying to figure out if the Galvin's crew will treat you like a diplomat or a loose grenade. I'm charming, also officially retired from being a grenade. Retired from detonation, not from chaos. He sat up, rubbed a smudge off the optical lens with his shirt sleeve, and said, We could always just pretend I'm your hostage. That way, if they're hostile, you've got leverage. I don't think your military believes in the concept of nonviolent capture. They'd probably rescue you by orbital strike. Then let's put a sign up. Hostages, present, no bombing. I'm sure that'll work. Over the last 2 days, the signal from the Galvin had grown stronger. Their estimated arrival was less than 20 hours away, barring any gravitational mishaps or hyperlane anomalies. Ilara had spent the time preparing every inch of the camp, calibrating defenses, encrypting her data, building alternate escape routes. Dax had offered to help and was politely told to stay out of the way unless something needed to be thrown or carried. He'd fixed 3 drones, rewired 2 solar collectors, and accidentally taught the training simulator to flirt. It now greeted Ilara each morning with, Your combat form glows brighter than a dying sun. Ilara tolerated it, barely. That night, the wind picked up. A storm rolled in from the west, filled with phosphorescent clouds and electric strands that danced between tree spires like lazy lightning. Rain fell in sheets, each drop sizzling slightly where it struck the charged soil. Dax stood outside with a metal rod until Ilara yanked him inside by the collar. Are you trying to conduct a science experiment or just die creatively? Bit of both, he grinned. I wanted to see if the storm reacts to sarcasm. It doesn't, but I might. Inside, the glow from the storm filtered through the tree fort's makeshift skylight. The shadows danced across the walls, interrupted occasionally by the flash of a distant bolt or the melodic complaints of the poetry bot. Dax stirred the contents of their nutrient pot. So, assuming they arrive without shooting anything, what's the plan? I talked to them. You confirm who you are. We ask for evac. Easy. Unless they're under orders to retrieve you by force. Less easy. Or unless my people intercept them first. Let me guess, also not easy. Painfully difficult. He sighed. You know, for someone who lives alone in a tree, you've got a lot of politics involved. I live alone in a tree because of politics. Later, after the storm subsided and the jungle quieted under its steam, Ilara pulled out a small crystal slab, slightly cracked, rimmed in copper. She handed it to Dax. This was my mother's, she said. It stores memory projections, fragments. I recorded over most of it when I was young. He activated it, and a hologram shimmered to life. Images of Ilara as a child, oversized goggles slipping down her nose, accidentally setting fire to a hover cart. Then another clip, teenage Ilara, sparring with a much larger boy, managing to trip him with a precise kick and an unexpected elbow. And then one final clip. Her alone in a long corridor, staring at a door she never opened. You ever miss it? He asked quietly. I miss what it could have been, not what it was. He handed it back. If it helps, the version of you I know is kind of amazing. I'm still not fixing your sleeping pad. That's fair. As dawn approached, they saw it. A silver streak across the horizon. The Galvan, sleek and angular, descending like a blade through sky glass. Its engines left trails of ion smoke, and the jungle birds took to the air in startled spirals. Dax stood, watching. Alara adjusted the strap of her plasma pistol and handed him a spare comm bead. Ready? She asked. No, he said honestly, but let's do it anyway. They made their way to the clearing where Alara had positioned the signal array. The Galvan hovered just above the canopy, a hatch opening in its underbelly. A transport pod descended with a hiss of pressurized air, settling in the grass with the delicacy of a sleeping predator. The pod door opened. 4 figures stepped out, 2 humans in black and red uniform, 1 Lasari envoy wearing the gold of diplomatic rank, and a 4th figure in full battle armor, visor opaque. Dax raised an eyebrow. That's not the welcome party I expected. Me neither, Alara said, hand not far from her sidearm. The lead officer stepped forward. Identify yourselves. Dax spoke first. Lieutenant Dax Mercer, Terran Colonial Recon, retired. Current status, shipwrecked, mildly concussed, deeply offended by local root vegetables. The officer didn't blink. You sent a distress beacon on a military channel. I didn't. She did. He nodded toward Alara. The Lasari envoy stepped forward. Her eyes narrowed. Ilara of the Driftwood Exile, you are not authorized to transmit off-world communications. I'm also not authorized to let a man die in the jungle. You have interfered with interstellar protocols. And you've arrived wearing a hat that looks like it was designed by committee. Dax coughed loudly. Maybe we all take a deep breath? The 4th figure in armor stepped closer. The voice that came from the speaker grill was distorted, but unmistakably amused. I like her. The envoy scowled. She is not to be admired, she is to be judged. Dax's hand moved slightly. If you judge her, you judge me too. The officer raised a hand. We're not here to fight. Our orders are to assess, retrieve, and report, not escalate. The armored figure tilted their head. I think escalation's already here, and it's interesting. Ilara folded her arms. If you want a report, here it is. He crashed. I saved him. He didn't shoot anything. I didn't betray anyone. If that's treason, then maybe you need new laws. The envoy opened her mouth to respond, then paused. Her communicator lit up. She turned, listened. When she looked back, her expression was different. There's been an update, she said. The council is reconsidering your status. You're to be brought in for debriefing. Ilara tensed. That's code for custody. No, the envoy said. That's code for curiosity. The galaxy's watching now, Ilara, and they're wondering what you've become. Ilara's ears flicked. She didn't smile, but her eyes sparked. I'm wondering that too. The armored figure chuckled. This is going to be fun. And as the winds from the Galvan's engines whipped the grass flat, Ilara stepped forward, not captured, not hidden, seen. The hall was brighter than Ilara expected. She squinted, blinking against the polished chrome walls, the light strips recessed into the ceilings, the suspicious lack of duct tape. She tugged uncomfortably at the uniform they'd given her, a dark teal suit with thin gold lines curling at the cuffs. I feel like I'm dressed as a beverage, she muttered. Dax, walking beside her in a more rumpled version of the same outfit, grinned. You look fine. Refreshing even. Very crisp. I swear if someone tries to drink me, I'm ejecting myself into the void. You'd make a fine cocktail, probably with a cinnamon rim. They passed through scanning fields, biometric checkpoints, and one very judgmental cleaning drone that chirped angrily when Dax stepped on its charging pad. I swear that thing just insulted my hygiene. It's not wrong. At the far end of the corridor, a wide set of doors slid open to reveal a circular room filled with floating display panels, murmuring voices, and a ring of council members. Some human, some Lasari, a few of species Ilara didn't even recognize. She half expected a gong to sound. Instead, a small terrier-sized droid rolled forward, projecting a holographic summary of their activities on the planet. Dax leaned toward Alara. That's your entire life for the last 3 months, summarized in 12 seconds. I hope it edited out the part where I got stuck in the shrub trap I made. Nope, there it is. Glorious slow motion. The central Lasari representative, an older male with a crown of thin crystalline wires growing from his scalp, spoke first. Ilara of Lasari driftwood lineage. You have been summoned not as a prisoner, but as a curiosity. Reports indicate you survived alone for 3 cycles. You aided a stranded Terran. You trained. You built. You broadcast. I didn't realize I was auditioning. You have become a point of interest, both politically and culturally. The human diplomat to his left tapped a display. And your combat data from the training simulations. Impressive. You show adaptability, precision, and she once disarmed a hostile with a frying pan, Dax added, an unorthodox methodology. I broke the handle. Still counts. The Lasari leader's gaze narrowed. You were once labeled defective, weak, ill-suited to our societal needs. I know. And yet, you are not broken. I never was. The room went quiet. A few of the human aides exchanged glances. One of the reptilian delegates made a pleased clicking sound. The councilwoman from the diplomatic sector finally spoke. The galaxy is shifting. Old definitions of strength are being questioned. You, Alara, have demonstrated a new model. Not brute force, not singular focus, but balance. Dax whispered, You're becoming a philosophical concept. I'd rather become a paid one. Let's aim for a commemorative statue first, with like a plaque. The armored figure from the Galvan stepped forward, helmet off now. She was a Terran woman with a buzzed haircut and a cybernetic jaw. Command has reviewed the logs. The recommendation is integration. You're being offered a position. Alara frowned. In the military, in the Vanguard Training Corps, not as a soldier, as an instructor. You know how to turn limits into leverage. That's valuable. What if I say no? Then we drop you off on a planet of your choice and wish you good luck. Dax looked at her. What do you want? Alara thought about the jungle, about quiet nights under glowing trees, about sparring with a poetry-spouting robot and laughing until her sides ached. She thought about waking up with a purpose that didn't belong to someone else. I want to make sure no one feels like I did. Unwanted, useless, broken. The Lysari leader inclined his head. Then you accept? I accept, but I have one condition. Name it. I want to keep the poetry drone. Dax grinned. And I want a badge that says assistant hero. Maybe with glitter. 2 weeks later, they stood on the deck of the Vanguard training station orbiting the planet Calyx 4. The station gleamed like a polished puzzle in space, all intersecting rings and drifting modules. Ilara had her own quarters, her own workshop, and a classroom filled with recruits from a dozen worlds. Dax had somehow secured a consulting title, despite not consulting anyone on anything except which way to hang a tactical map. The poetry bot had its own ID badge and occasionally subbed in as motivational speaker. During training sessions, Alara was a blur, fast, focused, endlessly adaptive. She taught misfits, oddballs, the ones who didn't quite fit the molds their species expected. She taught them to move differently, think sideways, bend the fight instead of breaking themselves against it. They called her Instructor Ilara. Some called her the Driftwood Blade. Dax preferred the Queen of Controlled Chaos. You've changed, he said one evening, watching her spar with 3 recruits at once. I hope so. You're stronger. No, she corrected. I just stopped pretending weakness meant failure. Later that night, they stood by the observation window, watching a new ship approach the station. Another rescue, another story about to begin. Dax leaned on the railing. Think they'll listen to you? They don't have to. They just need to listen to themselves. Philosophical again. Paid to be. Still no statue, though. Maybe one day. And if not, Ilara smiled, ears twitching as the stars passed silently by. Then I'll build my own. Jax wiped the sweat from his brow as the distant thrum of starship engines vibrated beneath his boots. Zelthera's sky was a shattered mosaic of fiery streaks and blinking laser bolts, like some cosmic light show gone horribly wrong. He glanced at his hoverbike parked crookedly among jagged rocks, thinking, well, this was supposed to be a simple delivery run, not an intergalactic fireworks display. His fingers itched for the toolbox he never got to unpack. Of all the planets to get stuck on, Jax muttered, adjusting the cracked visor on his helmet, couldn't it have been one with breathable air and fewer exploding things? He kicked a pebble that bounced off an oddly glowing shrub. Great, radioactive flora. Just what I needed. A sharp crack echoed nearby, followed by a muffled groan. Jax froze. The groan sounded human. Maybe not human, but definitely someone or something alive. His curiosity, a dangerous habit, got the better of him. Okay, Jax, you wanted adventure, he said, stepping toward the sound. Try not to get blown up immediately. Slipping through a narrow fissure in the rocks, he found her, the alien queen, or at least a woman with long, slender ears that flicked nervously, eyes half-lidded from pain or exhaustion. Her skin was pale but shimmered faintly, like stardust caught in moonlight. She was slumped against the crystalline wall, her royal garb torn and stained with something that definitely wasn't coffee. Jax blinked. Your Highness, or, fancy lady? Need a hand? She lifted a hand weakly, and her lips moved, but no sound came. He figured she was either out of breath or politely ignoring him. Good first impression. Well, since you're not chatting, I guess I'll do all the talking, he said. Name's Jax. Not exactly your typical knight in shining armor, but I've got a wrench and a first aid kit. Probably not what you expected, huh? Her ears twitched, and she gave a faint nod. Jax tried not to stare at those ears too much. They reminded him of some of the old Earth cartoons he used to watch. Long, expressive, and slightly hilarious in their twitching. You know, if you were on Earth, people might think you're just cosplaying an elf, but you're definitely the real deal here. The Queen coughed, then surprisingly smiled, a tiny, weary smile. Jack scratched his head, unsure if he was making things better or worse. Okay, first things first, Jax muttered, digging into his pack. Let's patch you up before those enemies come back looking for their royal headache. He tore a strip from his shirt and tried to wrap her injured arm. I'm no surgeon, but this'll hold until you get something better. If you start glowing or growing tentacles, please let me know. The Queen's eyes flickered with amusement. Jax took that as a win. By the way, he said, glancing around, any idea why you're crashing wars and royal drama right in my delivery route? She managed to whisper, fled betrayal. Jax raised an eyebrow. Yeah, sounds like a Tuesday for you, huh? The Queen coughed again, then looked up at the alien sky. Jax followed her gaze to the two suns dipping below jagged mountains, painting the horizon in burning gold and bruised purple. You know, if you wanted to escape, you could have picked a vacation spot with less exploding starships. Just saying. She said something softly in a melodic tone, and Jax caught a word. Zelthara. The name sounded like a nightclub he'd never get invited to. Jax chuckled. Well, Zelthara, you're officially stuck with me. I'm your accidental nurse, tech support, and occasional bad joke teller. Her ears flicked faster like she was laughing inside her head. Just then, a rumble shook the cave, and Jax leapt to his feet, grabbing his small plasma pistol. All right, Your Majesty, let's see if the universe has any more surprises for us. Spoiler alert, I don't do well with surprises. As they moved deeper into the cave, Jax kept trying to lighten the mood. So, any chance you're into space karaoke? Because I can't carry a tune, but I'm great at embarrassing myself. The Queen looked at him with a mixture of tiredness and something like curiosity. Maybe she thought he was mad, or maybe just very human. Either way, Jax decided that rescuing a royal alien with twitchy ears might be the start of a very weird day. And if the universe wanted to throw him into royal drama with zero training and a malfunctioning hoverbike, well, he was at least going to try not to mess it up too badly. Jax blinked at the strange bubbling concoction the Queen had just handed him. You want me to drink this? He poked the glowing vial suspiciously. Is this some kind of alien smoothie or a poison experiment? Lyriel's long ears twitched in amusement, though she said nothing. Her expression was a mix of regal patience and exasperation, like she was dealing with a particularly stubborn child, which in Jax's case wasn't far from the truth. All right, he said, uncapping the vial with a dramatic flourish. Bottoms up. May the stars forgive me. He gulped it down. The taste was indescribably weird, somewhere between burnt copper and fizzy fruit punch, with a hint of, please don't die. Lirel gave a nod of approval. Healing elixir from the Zeltharan Crystal Gardens. Accelerates tissue regeneration and calms neural trauma. Jack squinted. Neural trauma? Does that mean I'm supposed to feel like I just had a vacation or like I'm about to start speaking in tongues? The queen only smiled faintly, her long ears flicking in rhythm to the alien melody that seemed to hum from within the cave walls. Both, perhaps. Jack sank onto a rough stone, rubbing his temples. Okay, so now I'm nursing the queen, drinking mystery potions and potentially speaking in tongues. What's next? Space dragons? Galactic tax audits? Lirel's smile grew, and for a moment the tension between them felt lighter, as if the universe was letting them share a brief reprieve. I suppose the dragons are on vacation, Lirel said softly. For now, Jax chuckled. Lucky us. I can barely handle the ones that roar about paperwork. The queen's gaze drifted to a small, hovering orb beside her, a servant drone shaped like a silver hummingbird. It zipped around, projecting holographic images of battlefields, star maps, and unfamiliar constellations. Jax leaned in, trying to make sense of the flickering symbols. So, what's the story with this place? Jax asked, waving a hand at the chaotic holo display. Looks like a war zone mashed up with a star chart from a sci-fi flick. And you're the queen in the middle of it? Lirel's expression hardened briefly. Zelthara is fractured. The clans fight endlessly for control of resources and ancient relics buried beneath the surface. My throne is contested, and my survival uncertain. Jax whistled. Sounds like intergalactic reality TV with a lot more explosions. And here I thought my life was complicated. The queen studied him for a moment, her eyes softening. You are unexpected, Jax grinned. I get that a lot, especially when I show up with a wrench instead of a sword. Their conversation was interrupted by the drone, which beeped urgently and projected a new hologram, a rough sketch of a moonlit ceremony. Jack squinted at the scene, trying to grasp its significance. That looks complicated, he said. Is this some kind of alien ritual? Looks like a dance party with glowing sticks and dramatic poses. Lirel nodded. The rite of the starborn, an ancient ceremony binding bloodlines and destinies. You were part of it, though you do not remember. Jax blinked. Me? I don't remember much of anything, honestly. Maybe I blacked out after a party? Lirel's long ears twitched as if in sympathy. The ceremony was sacred. Your participation binds us. Jack scratched his head. Great. So I'm officially in an alien soap opera, and I don't even have a script. She smiled again, a mix of weariness and hope. You are more important than you realize. Jack sighed dramatically. I always wanted to be important, just not this important. The queen's lips curled into a playful smirk. If you survive this, you may yet earn your crown. Jax laughed, then winced as his patched-up arm reminded him of the danger still lurking outside the cave. So what's next? More alien dances? Or do I get a cool space gadget that shoots lasers? He asked. Lirel's eyes twinkled. Both, perhaps. But first you must learn. Jax groaned. Great. School in the middle of a war zone, just like my childhood. They settled into an uneasy alliance, him learning the alien customs with all the awkwardness of a novice, her guiding him through political intrigue and the delicate art of royal diplomacy. Each lesson came with misunderstandings, laughter, and the occasional explosion, usually caused by Jax's enthusiastic but misguided attempts to help. During a particularly memorable moment, Jax attempted the sacred moon dance, only to trip over his own feet and send a tray of glowing elixirs flying, one of which splattered on a territorial Zeltharan beast. The creature responded by chasing him in furious circles, ears flapping like wings. Not exactly graceful, but effective, Lirel commented dryly as Jax finally ducked into a narrow crevice, panting. Yeah, I think the beast respects me now, he gasped. Or it's just confused. The queen laughed, a sound like soft bells mingling with distant thunder. As the days passed, their bond deepened. Humor became their shield against despair, and understanding bridged the vast gulf between their worlds. Jack still struggled with the reality of fatherhood, especially when it involved an alien queen and an unborn child whose lineage could reshape galaxies. One evening, under Zelthara's twin moons, Lyriel looked at Jax with a serious expression. There is something you must know, she said softly. Jax raised an eyebrow, bracing himself. This isn't about the moon dance again, is it? She shook her head. Number it is about the child, the one you carry within you. Jax blinked. Wait, what? I think you're mixing up some details. I'm pretty sure the baby's in you, not me. Lyriel's eyes met his, steady and unyielding. You are the father. By our ancient rites, your bond is sacred and binding. Jax leaned back, stunned. Sacred rites? Bonding? Was this some kind of interstellar party favor I don't remember accepting? Lyriel smiled gently. A ceremony lost to your memory, but not to your blood. Jack shook his head, half in disbelief, half in awe. Well, guess I'm not just an accidental nurse anymore. I'm a galactic dad. The queen's laughter echoed softly in the cave, mingling with the hum of distant starships and the quiet hope of a new beginning. Welcome to the family, Jax. And in that moment, the impossible felt just a little more real. Jax stared at the strange device Lyriel handed him, a sleek, silver bracelet humming with faint blue energy. What is this? Some kind of fancy alien Fitbit? Lyriel's long ears twitched. It is a bond link. It connects us, sharing vital signs, emotions, and thoughts. It will help you understand our child's needs. Jax eyed the bracelet suspiciously. So, it's like a baby monitor. For a kid I'm not even sure I'm ready to be a dad to? Exactly, Lyriel said with a smirk. Welcome to parenthood, Zelthara style. He rolled the bracelet onto his wrist, feeling a gentle pulse. Suddenly a soft voice echoed in his mind, gentle and soothing, but distinctly alien. Hello, Dad. Jax nearly dropped the device. Okay, that's new. Did the baby just say, hello in my head? Or is this some weird cosmic prank? Not a prank, Lyriel said, grinning. The bond link allows communication beyond words. Jax shook his head. Great. Now I'm mind-talking to an unborn kid. What's next? Changing diapers in zero gravity? As if on cue, the cave's ancient walls trembled. Outside, distant explosions rippled through the twilight sky. Jax sighed. Speaking of zero gravity, we should probably figure out how to get you off this rock before the neighbors decide to pay a visit. Lyriel nodded, her eyes sharp. The clans won't rest until I'm captured or dead. We need allies. Jack squinted at the holographic map floating between them. Any friends in high places? Maybe some space pirates with a heart of gold? Or is this more political intrigue with laser sword stuff? Both, Lyriel replied. There is a faction called the Starbound Legion, mercenaries who respect strength and honor. We must find them. Jax grinned. Mercenaries? Perfect. I once negotiated with a bunch of space pirates who only accepted bribes and rare snacks and bad jokes. Maybe I still have the touch. They packed quickly, the bond link glowing softly on Jax's wrist. As they stepped outside, the alien night was alive with strange sounds. Whistles, clicks, and the occasional distant roar of unseen beasts. Jax adjusted his patched jacket. All right, Your Highness. Shall we go meet some honorable mercenaries? Maybe I can impress them with my incredible ability to trip over nothing. Lyriel's laughter, soft and musical, was the only answer as they set off under the twin moons. The trek to the Starbound Legion's outpost was anything but smooth. Jax accidentally activated a hidden security drone, which chased them for half a kilometer while he tried to explain, I swear I was just trying to pet it. When they finally reached the camp, a cluster of sleek ships and makeshift tents nestled in a crater. Jax was panting and covered in dust. A tall figure approached, clad in black armor with glowing red accents. State your business, the mercenary demanded, voice like gravel. Lyriel stepped forward, regal despite the grime. I am Queen Lyriel of Zelthara, seeking alliance. The mercenary raised an eyebrow. A queen? Here? You're either brave or incredibly foolish. Jax chimed in. And I'm the guy who's good at messing up just enough to make things interesting. The mercenary smirked. I'm Commander Rake, and you've got my attention. For now. Negotiations were tense but peppered with Jax's awkward humor. When asked about their plans, Jax blurted, well, mostly surviving, maybe overthrowing some bad guys, and definitely finding a better place to park my hoverbike. Rick laughed, the sound echoing across the camp. You've got guts, human. Maybe you'll last longer than most. As night deepened, Jax and Lyriel shared stories by the campfire. The bond link pulsed gently, translating the unborn child's hiccups and kicks into gentle nudges. Jax marveled, I never thought I'd be feeling baby kicks and negotiating galactic politics in the same week. Lyriel smiled. Our lives are intertwined now, in ways we do not yet understand. Suddenly, alarms blared. A patrol ship detected incoming enemies. The camp erupted into chaos, blasters igniting in a chorus of light and sound. Jax grabbed a plasma rifle, fumbling as he tried to remember which way to aim. Okay, defend the queen, don't shoot the mercenaries, and try not to look like a space tourist. The battle was fierce but brief. Jax managed to knock over an enemy drone with a well-thrown rock. Accidental genius. Rick clapped him on the back. Not bad, human. You might actually survive this. As the dust settled, Jax caught Lyriel's eye. So, about that family thing, think the kid will be proud? She laughed. With you as a father, the universe will have no choice but to listen. Under the alien stars, amid newfound allies and endless dangers, Jax felt something unfamiliar, a flicker of hope. All right, he said, flexing his fingers. Let's show the galaxy what a misplaced human and a long-eared queen can do. The journey was just beginning. Jax woke to a loud beep, followed by a flashing light on his wrist. The bond link was acting up again, buzzing like a caffeinated squirrel. He rolled over and muttered, Okay, kid, what now? I was having a perfectly mediocre dream about a sandwich. Lyriel stirred beside him, her long ears twitching as the light reflected off her skin. The child is restless, she said, voice still thick with sleep. It is unusual. Jax groaned and sat up, rubbing his eyes. Unusual how? Like a cosmic tantrum or just alien sleeplessness? She touched the bond link on his wrist, and a wave of images flooded his mind. Twisting stars, shifting galaxies, and a soft, pulsing glow that seemed to resonate with something deep inside him. The child is reacting to an energy signature nearby, Lyriel said, frowning. Something ancient, powerful. Jax blinked. Ancient and powerful? Great, just what I needed. Is this the space version of a noisy neighbor? Before Lyriel could answer, the cave's entrance suddenly illuminated with a harsh, pulsating light. Outside, sleek starships hovered, their hulls gleaming under Zelthara's twin suns. The Starbound Legion had returned, but not alone. Jax grabbed his blaster, whispering, Looks like we're getting visitors. Hope they brought snacks. Lyriel stood, regal despite the urgency. These are emissaries from the Void Syndicate, a faction notorious for ruthless tactics. They come bearing demands. Jax raised an eyebrow. Demands? Like, give us the queen or we'll crash your party kind of demands? Lyriel nodded grimly. Precisely. The emissaries stepped forward, led by a tall figure clad in shifting armor that shimmered with an eerie darkness. Queen Lyriel, the leader intoned, voice like static electricity. Your allegiance to the Starbound Legion threatens the balance. Surrender yourself and the child, or face obliteration. Jax scoffed. Obliteration? That's a little dramatic. Have you tried knock-knock jokes? They're less threatening. The emissary's eyes narrowed. Humor is wasted here, human. Lyriel stepped forward, voice calm but fierce. You underestimate the bond we share and the strength of our alliance. Jax nudged her. Plus, I've got a knack for accidentally breaking things. The leader sneered. Very well. Prepare for consequences. Suddenly, the ground shook as the emissaries unleashed a wave of energy pulses, disrupting the cave's protective shields. Jax dove for cover, yelling, "I guess it's go time!" The battle was chaos, a whirlwind of flashing blasters, energy shields, and strategic retreats. Jax found himself ducking behind a rock as a plasma blast singed the air inches from his head. "Hey, can someone tell me if this is supposed to happen today?" he shouted, trying to reload his blaster. Lyriel appeared beside him, her long ears laid back in determination. "We must protect the child at all costs." Jax nodded, grinning despite the danger. "Got it. Daddy's duty." Using the bond link, Jax felt a sudden surge of energy connecting him to the child, like a spark igniting his senses. The unborn being's presence filled him with a strange warmth and clarity. "Okay, kid, if you want to help, now's the time," he muttered. Guided by the bond link, Jax navigated through the battlefield, coordinating with Lyral and the Starbound Legion fighters. He found himself directing tactical strikes with unexpected precision, as if the child's instincts were lending him insight. At one point, Jax accidentally triggered a gravity well generator, sending a cluster of enemy drones tumbling into the air like marbles on a zero-G ball. "Oops, my bad," he said sheepishly. Lyral laughed despite herself. "Your mistakes are oddly effective." As the fight intensified, the emissary leader unleashed a devastating weapon, a dark energy cannon capable of ripping through shields and matter alike. Jax stared at the glowing barrel, sweat trickling down his brow. "Any chance this thing comes with an off switch?" Lyral quickly activated a shimmering force field around them. "We must disrupt its power source." Jax glanced around, spotting a small pulsating core atop the weapon. "On it!" he shouted, sprinting toward the cannon. Dodging blasts and collapsing debris, Jax reached the core and hurled a plasma grenade. The explosion sent a shockwave through the battlefield, disabling the cannon and stunning the enemy forces. The emissary leader snarled, retreating with a promise. "This is not over." Breathing heavily, Jax returned to Lyral's side. "Well, that was intense. But hey, at least we're still standing, and I think I just earned some serious cool dad points." Lyral smiled, her long ears twitching in amusement. "Indeed, your efforts have saved us all." Jax looked down at the bond link, feeling the gentle pulse of the child inside him. "Guess the family's got a few more adventures ahead." Lyral nodded. "The galaxy is vast, and our story is only beginning." Jax grinned, eyes shining with determination. "Then let's make it one hell of a ride." Jax sat cross-legged on the observation deck of the Starbound Legion flagship, staring out at the swirling nebulae and distant stars. The bond link hummed softly on his wrist, a steady reminder of the life growing inside Lyral, inside him. Who would have thought a simple help an injured alien queen mission would spiral into galactic politics, battles, and cosmic family drama? Jax rubbed his jaw and muttered, "And here I thought my biggest challenge would be assembling a piece of IKEA furniture." Lyral approached, her long ears catching the faint hum of the ship's engines. "You're awfully quiet, Jax." He grinned. "Just reflecting. You know on how much my life has changed since I found you passed out in that crater?" She smiled softly. "We've both changed. I once believed my destiny was tied only to my throne, my people. Now it includes you, our child, and the fragile hope for peace." Jax leaned back, eyes twinkling. "Yeah, and apparently I'm the galaxy's least likely space dad." Suddenly, the ship's comm crackled. Commander Reich's voice came through, steady as ever. "We've negotiated a truce with the Void Syndicate. They're agreeing to a ceasefire for now." Jax raised an eyebrow. "Ceasefire, huh? So the universe isn't ending today?" Lyra laughed. "For now, peace prevails." The past weeks had been a whirlwind. Battles, betrayals, alliances forged in fire, and moments of unexpected laughter. Like the time Jax tried teaching Lyral how to make a sandwich, only to realize Zeltharan cuisine didn't include bread. "Apparently wrapping a slithering fish in a leaf is their version of a BLT, he joked. Jax looked at Lyral, eyes serious. "You know, I came into this thinking I was just helping out a stranger. Now I'm part of something bigger. A family, a cause, a destiny I didn't see coming." She reached out, placing a hand on his. "And you've become more than just a helper. You are a father, a partner, and a beacon of hope for Zelthara." The bond link pulsed gently, syncing their emotions. Jax could feel the child's presence, curious, strong, and ready to face the universe. Ever think about what kind of kid we're raising? Jax asked. Half human, half long-eared alien royalty? That's going to be one heck of a science project. Lyriel smiled. A bridge between worlds. Their laughter was interrupted by the ship's AI, which announced, approaching Zelthara's capital. All systems nominal. Jax stood, looking out at the planet that had been both battleground and sanctuary. Ready to go home? She nodded. Ready. As the ship descended, Jax reflected on how much he had grown. From a man who barely understood the customs of an alien race, to someone who embraced responsibility with humor and heart. The landing was met with cheers from Zelthran citizens and Starbound Legion allies. The once wounded queen walked proudly, flanked by her human companion, now known across the galaxy as the unexpected father of the royal heir. In the days that followed, treaties were signed, peace talks held, and the child's presence became a symbol of unity between species. One evening, as Jax helped Lyrael prepare a meal, Zeltharon style this time, he teased, Next time, remind me to bring the universal translator. I'm not sure if I'm eating dinner or deciphering an ancient riddle. She laughed, eyes shining. Whatever comes, we face it together. Jax raised his glass. To family, to peace, and to the best science fiction story I never knew I was living. Lyrael clinked her glass with his. To our future, written among the stars. And as the twin suns set on Zelthara, a new,